We got a call to a disturbance at the richer part of town. Found a young man standing at attention. He'd smashed a car's windows, and the way he was waiting made us both question his intentions. After we threw him in the van, my partner asked, "So where'd you get these medals, son?" "They're mine, sir," he whispered, as he glared into the nowhere I was in, Afghanistan. He'd been too drunk to get into the hostel that he shared with the junkies and the worn out and runaway moms. So with nowhere to sleep, he'd wandered our streets until he'd caught someone watching him like he was nothing but a bum. Forgotten wars leave forgotten people, like autumn leaves racing towards a winter's drain. But then I guess if we didn't remember to forget them, how would they ever convince us to go to war again? I could see that he was a round peg, trying to fit into a square hole, but the empty corners were still too loud. I asked him what it had been like over there, but despite being locked up, it was clear he was just too proud. So he called his ex-co, who said he's lost too many mates and most of them over here. You see, it doesn't matter how far they run, not everyone gets to come home from Afghanistan. Forgotten wars leave forgotten people, like autumn leaves racing towards a winter's drain. But then I guess if we didn't remember to forget them, how would they ever convince us to go to war again? I went to see the vehicle's owner to try and plead his case, but all she said was, "Look at my cleaner." I've never heard her once complain, even though thanks to the war she was a refugee from Afghanistan. Forgotten wars leave forgotten people, like autumn leaves racing towards a winter's drain. But then I guess if we didn't remember to forget them, how would they ever convince us to go to war again?
Okay, that was for Dr. Bruce Pay, who went to Afghanistan. I think it was twice he went there. Anyway, we're bringing in Dr. Ursula Edgington from New Zealand. This is an early one for us. How are you going? Thank you for the show. Yeah. Now, what's life like in New Zealand now? We usually talk to Liz Garn and a few other people from New Zealand. It's what is it like? Is it similar to what's happening in Australia? Like there's these active, aware people and these people who are sort of placidly aware that something's going on but don't want to do about it, and then these other people who are absolutely believe everything the government says.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think the population in New Zealand, as lots of people will know, is, there's a lot of retirees, and I think that's what's just keeping the economy ticking over, is the wealth that they've accumulated from that generation, helping out their children and their grandchildren, economically. So yeah, I mean, that generation, as we know, the generation above you know, where we are sort of thing, are probably totally engrossed in the mass formation. You know, they religiously watch the news. They think they'll go to the Jacinda movie that's on at the local cinema. You know,
Oh my
she's
God. I didn't
she's
know
a,
there was a Jacinta movie.
oh, of course, yeah. Like she's got the
I hadn't
university.
heard that.
Yeah, she's got the university fellowship. Somebody's ghost written her biography for her, and now there's Jacinda the movie. So, you know, tick box, move on to the next thing. That's what you
So,
get for, you know, the reward for being the weft puppet. That's what happens.
so most people see in Australia, when she first came to power in Australia, Australians loved her. They wanted her to be our prime minister. They wanted New
Yeah.
Zealand to join with Australia so we could uh, be ruled by her. There's even in Melbourne, there's a big sort of grain silo in the middle of Brunswick, and it's got a huge picture of her, like Stalin picture, where she's hugging this Muslim woman after that
Oh,
shooting.
that's right.
And
We are
there
them. Yeah.
she is there, you know, and
Yeah.
so she's seen as that. And then
Yeah.
but then of course, from our perspective, or from a lot of people's perspective, she turned psychopathic. And but do New Zealanders still look to her like this, their savior?
Oh, there's definitely an element of the population, yeah, that believe that. I think there's increasing people that are aware of how contrived it all is. And I think, you know, to go back to that image of Jacinda, you know, being a wonderful person, it's only with the benefit of hindsight that you can go back and see how strategic that was. Like you know, with when she was wearing the hijab, you know, that was just in the run up. That was in 2019, that whole Christchurch event, whatever that was. But they were very strategic in how they managed to portray Jacinda as this, you know, respectful, multicultural, culturally, what do they culturally sensitive, or whatever the word is, the PC word. Yeah, so it was the run up to the COVID thing. What did you say? Sorry.
Appropriate, culturally appropriate. How she?
Yeah, no, there's a PC phrase for it, but I can't think.
All right.
But do you know her sister and her husband, Louise? They were in the UK in the run up to COVID, but at the end of 2019, they moved back to New Zealand, which is another one of those like little funny coincidences that you just think, you know, because he works in cybersecurity now, you know, as a part of the digital ID kind of, you know, machinery. It's very odd.
Going by your language, this is the world we live in now. We don't know what's true anymore. We really don't.
No,
absolutely. Like even with the shooting of Charlie, initially I thought, please just let it be this one young man. I just give us a break. Just let it be one young guy who's, you know, who's having an affair with a furry, and he just happened to do it. And now, of course, you just can't look away from the evidence and everything else, and you're just going, and we're probably never going to know who did it if someone else did it. Like Kennedy, like 9/11, we have to live with these great mysteries, you know. And it's really hard. I think Joe Rogan said once, one minute he questioned the COVID jabs, and the next minute he doesn't know whether we landed on the moon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it is a bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's hard to debate sometimes because we don't really have access to the actual real data and facts, except, you know, like I think it was Barry Jones or Barry, the guy in New Zealand who released the data.
Yes.
On the thing, you know, released real data. And instead of actually going, oh my God, let's look at the data, all they did was arrest him for breach of privacy.
Yeah. Well, that's the corporate playbook, you know, discredit, you know, somehow defame, or, you know, there's a whole, you know, they dismiss you, and then they go through this, you know, and it's well documented. I mean, something, you know, that I regret really is not looking carefully enough at that corporate playbook. The whole phrase corporate playbook, I just thought was some sort of fuzzy area that some people had written about. And, you know, and it was only during COVID really that I researched properly and found that there was a whole body, you know, with my academic hat on, there's a whole discipline, you know, wrapped up around whistleblowers. I mean, Professor Martin, Brian Martin, emeritus, he's a POM as well, emeritus Professor Wollongong, I think he was, has written, you know, all of his career is written about whistleblowers and the corporate playbook and propaganda. And I never even knew that existed, you know, that body of work.
I'm a POM too. I'm a 10-pound POM, so I came out here when I was 5.
Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
but why have you yourself chosen to take the harder route? Because to be anything in society now, if you're questioning the narrative, you're going to come up against opposition, chances of being cancelled. We get censored a lot. We had one of our pages, 100,000 followers. They took it down, never gave it back. And so we just put up with all this. Why did you decide to take the tougher route?
Well, I think, you know, I've heard a lot of people say similar kind of thing to what I think about it, is that there was no choice. You know, there was no other way.
Yep.
I wasn't going to go along with what they, you know, were applying to all of the population. It never really made sense. I mean, I did in the beginning, I you know, to be perfectly honest, I had no idea what was going on. I did sort of fall for the beginning of the propaganda. So, you know, it wasn't until I saw the same speeches, because obviously I'm still in contact with my UK colleagues or some of them, and in the US and in other places. And when the same phrases from the same so-called leaders were repeated over and over again, I thought, this just isn't normal. Like, this doesn't happen, you know, especially when we're talking about different seasons in different hemispheres. You know, why would they be pushing, you know, the jab on people in their summer when we were in the winter, or vice versa? It just, there was no logic to it. And then obviously I was doing some teaching in the workplace, and also I was doing some voluntary teaching at the local prison when the mandates came in. So my prisoner students, none of them were going to comply. I mean, they were just, you know, all day every day they were in the gym, you know, they were kind of, you know, nobody was going to have the balls to hold them down and jab them against their will. And of course, one of the reasons why students, you know, prisoners are inside, you know, behind the wire, those that are studying know that they have to somehow overcome this challenge of what the government has, you know, because they're a symptom, right? I don't, you know, obviously this is controversial because
That's all right. You're on the right show.
I'm not agreeing with the horrible crimes some of them committed.
No, I agree.
But I'm an educationalist, and I know that a lot of the prisoners that I was helping couldn't read and write.
Wow.
Literally couldn't read and write.
Yeah.
And so the system has let them down multiple times, not just once, over and over and over again. Some of them were young men. You know, they'd had a bad start in life. They'd maybe got in with the wrong crowd, and one thing had led to another, maybe drugs as well, you know. But yeah, going back to my point about, you know, being mandated out of my because I'm a freelance. I mean, I should be, you know, open about that. Nobody pays me to do what I do, and I'm definitely not representing anybody that, you know, any of the teaching agencies that I'm maybe working for on and off. But at that time, when the mandates came in, I knew that the prisoners that I was teaching were not complying for various reasons. And so why, you know, that it didn't make any sense for a volunteer tutor like me to comply with a population-wide experiment that
I've interviewed about 3 prison guards, I think, who lost their job because they wouldn't take it because they were mandated. So they
Yeah.
said the prisoners had more rights than they did.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that was definitely the case. Yeah, and the
Yeah.
whole way that system, you know, I mean, I don't know if you've read the latest articles about prison population, but I think it's the same in Australia. The prison population is the largest it's ever been, or something. It's just they keep
Oh, really?
building
No, I
prison.
haven't. I
Yeah,
haven't seen that.
they keep,
No,
keep building
Jan
prisons.
says
And,
here,
yeah,
thought Australian prisons had to be jabbed. No, as far as from my information, interviewing people, that's not correct, Jan.
no,
But they
just
use methods to get you vaccinated. Look, I was the same as you. Initially, I was just sort of sitting back watching it, and I sort of thought, okay, it's a pandemic. I thought maybe I did think it had been man-made. I did think maybe it had been accidentally released from the lab or some rogue scientists that decided to kill the world. So I thought, oh, it's like a 12 Monkeys film now or something.
yeah,
But very quickly, you started to go, hey, this is really dodgy.
yeah,
And went from there. And then our
yeah,
lives all changed. I mean, it's literally now before COVID and after COVID, BC and AC, you
yeah,
know. How
yeah.
can I ask before we go on, how's your life changed for deciding to challenge the narrative even through just non-compliance? How's your life changed, better or worse?
A bit of both, I think, which is probably the same for lots of people. I've lost a lot of friends and a lot of colleagues. Some colleagues who I genuinely thought, would, because they've written in the past, about academia being corrupt and, too difficult to get the truth out. Academic colleagues who were student-centered, believed in informed consent, had written books about ethics, research ethics, things that you would think, of course, they must see it. But no, they haven't. So
My
yeah, a lot
daughter
of
was in
colleagues.
school, just to an intersect there. My daughter was in school unjabbed, and she didn't tell anyone. She was trying to hide. But she said they were doing a lesson on dog licenses, which is what Aborigines used to have in the 60s. You wanted to be out after 6 p.m., you had to have paperwork
Yeah,
to say you were allowed
yeah,
to be out. And they said, we should never have these back. How terrible. And yet
yeah,
they all had vaccine passports.
yeah.
And my daughter said she felt like screaming. She said, you can't see the similarities, but they couldn't see it.
They couldn't see it.
It's,
No,
yeah,
no.
it's incredible.
It is amazing. Yeah.
Do you have any
So
theories about that of your own? From you've
yeah,
got a lot of psychology training. Have you
yeah.
have you had any thoughts on what you're seeing and why so many people either don't see or refuse to see, and why they're so placid when there's so many things that should have them up in arms?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that cognitive dissonance is an amazing thing, right? And I think even the behavioral scientists who dreamt up, and created and wrote about the behavioral science, I don't think even they realized just how powerful it was. And to use those strategies on the population without people knowing about, what was being done to them and how their behavior was being changed was just unbelievable, really, that was allowed to continue and still going on today, with no perception of any kind of research ethics. It's yeah, but lots of money involved. That's the problem, Michael. Always follow the money and you'll get to,
Well, follow
where
the
these
money to
people.
the thing, but the real issue we have is the people who are allowing it to happen. It
Yeah,
makes me wonder if the USSR wasn't established at the point of a gun, but simply through compliance of the public that just let the walls
yeah,
be built up around them. You know,
yeah, yeah.
it's
I
uh,
mean,
it's even controversial to go back to World War One, where we've been sold the story of how brave the soldiers were to run into bullets, but now we're wondering, were they brave or were they compliant?
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
they
Yeah,
had all the
yeah,
guns. They could have turned around to the generals and said, "I'm not dying here in the mud for you," But
yeah,
instead, even when they played soccer together, met the Germans and go, "You're not my enemy." They had all the guns. They could have all gone home, but they just went back and
Yeah.
obediently killed each other.
See, but I wonder now whether that was just a story that was concocted. Like everything, you have to start to question some of these myths that surround the whole.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we know, for instance, you know, the background and context to the World Wars 1 and 2, you know, weren't quite what we thought. So
No, we
I
don't
think
know. That's what I'm saying. We don't know.
no, the thing about the propaganda of World War II, which is what we were just beginning to talk about, wasn't it? Before we recorded, Matthias Desmet, who's written the book about the psychology of totalitarianism, he based his theory around Hannah Arendt's work, who was a Jewish professor who escaped in the run-up to World War II. So she basically saw what was happening, because it's a lot of people don't realize it. You know, it wasn't just like 1938, World War II, 1939.
Yeah.
It was a very slow burn, which is what we've been seeing happening probably, you know, for the last 10, 15 years, but we haven't seen it because it's not been so obvious. Death by 1,000 cuts. So that run up to, you know, during the 1930s, where they did, you know, say, well, it's an emergency, you know, an economic emergency in terms of the desperate situation of the German economy. So they brought in all these laws, one after another, and slowly they built this vision of, you know, whatever the problem was, and this is the solution. And so, and over the years, lots of people have theorized about why that happened in Germany, and lots of people have been guilty, maybe with the benefit of hindsight, maybe naive, or all of us have been thinking that it was only the German people, you know, something unique in the German culture that allowed this mass formation to happen. But we're living proof now that all humanity is vulnerable to the same kind of attack, you know, behavioral science that is, you know, especially when there's unlimited amounts of money being chucked at it, you know, through all these media channels, and you don't know, you know, until you're censored, like I was on LinkedIn. I mean, I got kicked out of LinkedIn for sharing that BMJ British Medical Journal article about the whistleblower. I don't know if you remember that coming out like 2022, I think it was. The lady that went to court to fight against Pfizer's, who was working, can't think what her name was now. She was working in one of the laboratories, and she was quality assurance, and she was, you know, a whistleblower about the quality not being up to the standards. But I shared that British Medical Journal article on my LinkedIn, and that was it. You know, 500.
And so it's a published article, so you're not.
Peer reviewed,
probably peer reviewed, published. Yeah, I know. We've had the same. The censorship has been extraordinary. You know, we're sort of used to it now.
Until you're censored, you don't know the censorship exists, right? That's the problem.
That's right.
If people only take at face value what they're seeing, and they don't put anything controversial up, which lots of people don't do now because they don't want to have those difficult conversations, they won't ever find out what is, you know, unacceptable truth. Truth. So,
yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? It's extraordinary times that way. Have you ever considered, though, humans have only known freedom for a couple of 100 years, really. And culturally, we've been serfs for you know, for hundreds and hundreds of years, and in tribes before that. I remember one friend who said to me once, who originally wasn't going to take it, then did, and cut me out of his life. He said a profound comment. He said, "I've always had bosses. Eventually, got to do what they say." But he used to be a bikie. He was a very tough guy. But he didn't need to take it for any other reason. And I've known other people to do the same. They basically, you know, it's like a serf mentality. I do wonder whether freedom only infects a few of us, and we're the ones holding on to it. The freedom to look at the world ourselves and decide for ourselves what's right and wrong. rather than allowing the government to tell us what's right and wrong and just doing what we're told.
Yeah. Yeah. Because freedom really is just about being left alone, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, we don't want any interference. We don't necessarily want freedom so much as just being left to get on with whatever we want to get on with, you know, and
Yeah.
and
As long as
one,
I'm
I
not
mean,
hurting anyone, what's the
yeah,
matter? You know, and even
yeah,
these conversations that they see dangerous, well, you don't have to listen, switch off. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And we're
yeah,
up against $1 trillion industry, and what we're
yeah,
doing it in buses and houses, and we're doing it on the smell of an oily rag. How dangerous could we possibly be? But
yeah,
obviously, they see us as very dangerous.
yeah, yeah,
Did you know
yeah.
you had this courage in you before you decided not to go this way?
I wouldn't necessarily call it courage. I've always been outspoken. I've always known, you know, what's right and wrong. And so, you know, I've always, I mean, before, I ought to explain that before I did my, you know, I went back to university later on in life. I spent many years in different kinds of jobs, all kinds of different jobs, you know, never really finding my place
Mhm.
because I could see the you know, the nonsensical, you know, policies and I don't know, the lack of customer service or the bureaucracy and paperwork or the time wasting or, you know, being
The hypocrisy.
micromanaged. Yeah, it was just like over and over and over again, these companies where you just thought, no, this isn't working for me. And so I, you know, the grass is always greener, you know, going to the next place and the next place. And then by accident, I did an evening class when we moved house and did a psychology degree. No, psychology A level it was, just so, you know, post secondary school qualification. And then just got the bug. You know, I just loved learning. I loved being in that environment, bouncing ideas off each other. And then, yeah, the rest is history. So I've always been one to question things, I suppose, in some ways. And my
Like a black sheep.
academic, yeah, my academic background, you just think, I mean, you probably feel the same way, Michael. We were born for this moment in
Yeah, I
time.
have
You
to.
know,
It feels that way.
yeah,
It does
we've
feel that
got
way.
certain skills and certain insights into ways of living and people that we've met and knowledge that we've built
Mm.
up that allows us insights that are quite unique into what's going on around us and that sense of, I don't know, spiritualness or whatever word you want to put on it, you know, something in the world that's going on that we are in touch with, that other people, they're just on this treadmill of work,
Mm.
sleep, eat, work, and they're not in touch with who they are or what's going on around them. And it's heartbreaking to witness, absolutely
Yeah, it is.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, it truly is. It's like you're on the Titanic, and you know you're going to hit the iceberg, and you're running into the bingo room, going, "Hey, we're going to hit an
Yeah,
iceberg," and they're
yeah,
just doing bingo. They
yeah,
just
that's
don't
right.
want to
Yeah,
know, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the other thing now is coming up though is I just want to, before we go to the work that you're doing with the nurses, what is your thoughts on what's happening in your home country of England now with the digital
Oh
ID?
God, it's horrendous, isn't it? It's absolutely horrendous.
Or to get the question specific,
Yeah,
what happened to your heart and soul when you heard Starmer go, if you don't have a digital ID, you won't be able to work?
yeah, yeah.
How'd
So
that feel?
yeah, well, I'm not surprised. You know, he did it without any consultation, apparently, to anybody around him. It was just totally out of the blue. He knows he's
Wow.
out. He knows he's out soon. He knows that he's hanging on by his, you know, fingernails. And the puppets are in place. You know, Nigel Farage is likely to get in if there's something will happen. There'll be an emergency. You know, there'll be a vote of no confidence. There isn't any other leader in inverted commas in the Labour Party really who's promoting him or herself. So it's sort of a foregone conclusion that Nigel Farage will step into that role, and the same, you know, policies will just continue to roll on. And I mean, one of the reasons why we left the UK 12 years ago was because of the multiple problems with the levels of crime, the constant, population increase, the infrastructure falling apart, the healthcare system. And naively, maybe at the time, we thought that New Zealand was somehow going to escape that that future. That's
just
before.
going back a bit. I left England or the Wales. I was born in Wales when I was 5. So to me, I was just a tag along to my parents. But as an adult, what's it like to actually leave your country of birth? Even just the leaving, going, I'm actually leaving to live in another country. What does that feel like?
Yeah, it was pretty stressful. Yeah, it was very intense to sell everything and put everything into a container and come to a new life. But I mean, again, that plays into how we could see through this COVID nonsense, right? Because when you've experienced something dramatic like that in your life,
yeah,
that you've taken that risk, really, that you've said goodbye to everything and started again, and it's not actually that scary once you do it. Like everything, right? It's like probably with you guys in the bus. Once you do it, you think, well, this is actually not that hard. We could do this more often. We could, maybe even go a bit further. So I always remember that that phrase that Daniel Craig, was it? Daniel Craig, the James Bond guy.
The actor.
When somebody interviewed him once and said, what was it that made you take this James Bond role? Because it was so different for him at the time, and there was a risk that he would be, forever immortalized as James Bond, which could be a negative. And he said the only reason he took it was because he didn't want to be that guy at the end of the bar in the early hours of the morning, on his 5th or 6th whiskey or whatever, saying to the barman, "Do you know what? I could have been James Bond." He didn't want to. He didn't want to have that regret, so he had to take it. And I suppose that was quite profound in terms of my understanding of life. If you don't make your own life, your own successes, and believe in yourself, then what hope is there? Nobody else is going to do that for you. You've got to do it yourself.
I wonder if that's the difference between people, that we have the courage to follow our own path, where others are just going like that Robert Frost poem, 2 paths merged in a wood, and he took the one less traveled, and that made all the difference.
That's right. Yeah.
And I wonder if this is what we're facing, because there's so many stories I've heard of people just saying things like they're aware that it's bad, but they're so big and I'm so small, I'm just going to do what they say. And I find these comments fascinating because I find that these are the real clues, because they don't come from a person. They come from the spouse who's trying to get the person to not take it. And this is the final things they say to them, and so I was wondering, just before we get, if there is a tribal thing as well, because I know that's another theory. Like it might be a digital ID. The main tribe is going this way. If you want to be safe, you got to stay with the main tribe, and they're your moral compass. Where we actually have our own moral compass and going, no.
Yes.
That just feels wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that, trauma, a lot of people as well have been through different kinds of trauma in their lives, and that has played into, I mean, I know you've had a recent personal trauma being in hospital and everything, so that's exaggerated your situation. But
well, there was a great lesson to learn there. But you finished what you were saying.
Well, I just think it's maybe a combination, of all of those things that makes us, as whoever we are, the people that can see through the propaganda. That may be part of it.
Well, tell us about the work you've been doing with the nurses and everything else. This is how busy you've been working over there.
Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the Nurses Collective, who were Nurses for Freedom, and NZT SOS, who are the New Zealand Teachers Speaking Out with Science. Some people might already be familiar with NZD SOS, the doctors. So these are all professionals in New Zealand who were mandated out of their jobs during the craziness, which began November 2021. So yeah, we've had this COVID inquiry in New Zealand, which you've probably heard about. We had phase 1 a couple of years ago, and that excluded, the terms of reference excluded the anything to do with the vaccines, which we thought, well, okay, it's going to be a whitewash anyway, so why are we not surprised? And then we had the general election and the coalition government, and one of the things that New Zealand First, when Winston Peters fought for, was the second phase of the COVID inquiry, which would include the vaccines, the mandates, and everything connected to that. So that was a bit of a positive breakthrough, even though, we're all skeptics, we're realistic. We know that the COVID inquiry was, funded and run, by puppets from government. They weren't going to release anything that was majorly controversial.
No.
But from my perspective as a researcher, certainly having read a lot of the literature that's come out of Nazi Germany, that was written often after the Second World War, that was written between the two world wars, it's just so important to get it on the public record. This is why books are so important. Like even your wonderful photograph book that you sent me.
Oh, I've been published now by Sensor Publishing. They
Oh,
published
fantastic.
my essays. Yeah, we just got our
Oh,
first
brilliant.
copies through. So
That's cool.
I wasn't going to do it. I was just putting essays, because a lot of people were telling me stories, but they didn't have the courage to speak freely. So
Yes.
I would just put them up as a what would you call it? I wrote them in essays and stuff, and so John was reading them and put them together in a book. But it's outlawed stuff. I'm under no illusions that it'll be outlawed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
It's
this is what the reports are, basically. They're stories that we've collated. So we did a proper research ethics application. We sent out a survey to the teachers and the nurses, asking them for their experiences, specific experiences during the mandate era. And we anonymized the data and put it together. And so the result of that is 2 reports, the copies of which went to the COVID inquiry, but also have gone elsewhere. And so, yeah, I think, books are the future. And that's one of the things that we want to do, is actually somehow get these reports out to a wider audience. Oh, great. Okay, that's the link. Yeah, books.
It's interesting. It's interesting that, though, you know what I mean? 'Cause let's go back just a sec. This is something that I've been having conversations about with people in the tribe.
Yeah.
We've had 5 years of trying to push truths that we've discovered, or the evidence that really goes, look, this stuff is really bad, from DNA in the capsules, the DNA in the jabs, that's all this other stuff. And but we've had Karen Phelps came out with a partner, statistically impossible, that they're both injured. One thing after another that we thought would have everyone up in arms and angry, including Brett Sutton just came out recently and said, "Oh, we made it all up, and we weren't following it." No one cares.
No.
And you just think, I can't be that it's tied. It has to be something else, because people are still injured. People are still have lost their jobs or lost their businesses, is a big one. But there's this placidity. I don't know if that's a word, but that's what drives me insane.
Yeah,
And
complacency. Yeah,
what are
absolutely.
your thoughts on that? Is it just people have given in, or they just want to be ruled and they don't care who's ruling them?
I just think it's too confronting. You know, in terms of the psychology, it's interesting because the climate change issue, right? If you try to have a conversation with somebody about the climate change propaganda, then it's good news. You know, you can say, well, actually, did you know that you know, the you know, levels, the seawater levels, you know, haven't changed dramatically? Or if you look at the longer term view, you know, actually, you know, especially New Zealand, right? Their
Yeah.
impact on climate is so negligible, you can't even measure it. So, you know,
No.
it's just, so it's good news. You know, you can spread
Yeah.
that good news and people will willingly take that up because they're fed up. They're tired of being scared and worrying all the time. But the problem that you've got with the whole vaccine issue is that a lot of people did it. They took it.
Hey, Rob.
They didn't know the dangers, and they've got to live potentially with the consequences of that on their health, never knowing whether it would be because they took the jabs or not, over and over again. So that's bad news, really. And nobody, you know, your brain, psychologically, your brain has to protect you from any harm. Otherwise, you are going to go insane, right? Like
Yeah.
we are. So that's the purpose of cognitive dissonance, right? Is self-protection. And so when somebody presents you with something that is potentially really bad news, automatically you close down. You don't want to hear it, you know, and
Yeah.
you can understand that.
Well, I'll give you one example. One of the most extraordinary things that happened to us. We were in, sorry to the people who've heard this story, but I'm still trying to get my head around it. So we have a thing called the Forest of the Fallen over here,
Yes,
which is,
Rosemary. Yeah,
yeah.
I do
So
follow Rosemary.
no, so it was initially started by Selkie in
Yeah,
Launceston in Tasmania, and we found it and we marketed it and we were helping her take it around. We named it the Forest of the Fallen,
yeah,
and it really spread. It really
yeah.
spread like crazy. At one point, there'd be like 150 of them all over Australia every weekend.
Fantastic.
And we were in a country town called Bright, and this couple in their 60s stopped their bicycles to look at them. The guy got really upset once he found out they were jabbed injured, and he said, "I just took it. I just had to get out of the house." But the woman said to me, it's given me cancer."
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry." She said, "I've got to go through chemotherapy now." And she was a nurse. She wanted to keep her job. And so she said, I've taken two. And then the doctor said, if you're going on a chemotherapy, you'll have to take the third one because your immune system will be so compromised. So she took the third one and the cancer exploded. So now she's
Oh,
got stage 4 cancer. So she was basically a dead woman
yeah,
here.
yeah,
And I said to her, I said, well, look, you're not going to get any justice from the courts, no acknowledgement from the government, but we capture your story. So we're probably the only justice you'll get, and we'll capture it.
yeah,
We won't edit it. You know, we'll let you have your say. And she was really appreciative and said, yeah, thanks. She says, I'll just go for a ride. I'll just finish our ride and I'll come back and do the interview. But what she did is she rode away and called the police. And the police came and harassed us like crazy with a video that just went viral.
oh
But to
dear.
me, what is she doing?
Yeah,
What changed in her that she felt,
yeah,
even though the state has, like democide, the state has killed her,
yeah, yeah,
she's still protecting it against someone who just wants to offer her a voice.
yeah, yeah. That's really interesting because, you know, it's possible that she got to a point where she maybe felt weak, you know, to have given in to an acceptance, you know, of what had happened. And then her
Okay.
only sort of support would have been the government again, you know, because
Yeah.
you know, like people have said to me that, you know, they trust the government not more than they trust me, you know, and
Yeah.
okay, if that's the way you feel, then
Yeah,
It's
how you
difficult
can
to
trust the
overcome.
government now, I have no idea.
No, no.
No idea. I mean, I come in, I'm in Sydney at the moment, but look at Melbourne with its machete bins.
Yeah,
$13 million for machete bins, and the
yeah,
premier just came out and said they're a roaring success. They've had all these machetes
yeah,
handed in, which I do not believe.
yeah,
And then just after she said that, they got 4 teenagers running down the main mall of Melbourne with machetes.
yeah,
So it's like 1984 where they don't even care about the lies now. The lies are right in your face. So in
yeah,
order to live in their world, you have to agree to lie and support the lies and propagate the lies. And
yeah,
surely wouldn't you say that's a form of communism? All the people lived under communism. That's what it was like. You
yeah.
had
And
to
they,
lie.
that's right. And you had to dob in, your neighbours, because there
Yeah.
literally wasn't enough police or whatever to enforce. The rules were so pedantic that the only way that you could do it was literally dobbing each other in, and we saw that during the COVID nonsense. It was, reporting on your neighbour for not adhering to the curfew or whatever it was. It's very, very bizarre.
Yeah, and these are, I feel like, even though it doesn't make sense, but if we could understand it, I really feel that the clues to fixing some things are in these statements from these people or the actions from these people that we do not understand. You
Mm,
know,
yeah,
it's, and we all have these stories where we're just
yeah,
baffled, you know,
yeah, totally. Yeah.
and people, like, people call them sheep. I don't think, do you think most people were asleep, or do you think people were aware but chose just to go with the government, to comply,
I
just
just
to,
think most people, I think, were just victims of the propaganda, because the propaganda, you've got to remember, was military grade, and it was across all platforms. It was entirely, it was like you're underwater. I mean, I don't know about you, but on the occasions when you went into a shop and you heard it on the radio, or you looked down at the pavement and there's stickers on the pavement, and you put the radio on and they're talking about it, and it was just all pervasive. It was just insane. So it's until you see the elephant in the room, you can't see it. And it's just so, literally, you cannot, if you put something in front of somebody. I mean, Bob Moran's cartoons are a classic example, right? I've sent people, they're very simplistic, as you know, the cartoons that he does. They're,
mm,
almost no words at all, simple colors, very simplistic to get the point across. People can look at those and study them for hours,
yeah,
and they still can't get it. They still don't
yeah,
understand what they're about, because it's just, that cognitive dissonance. It's so deeply embedded in
yeah.
their
We had
whole their
Lunig
life.
here. Lunig was the same over in Australia.
Yeah,
Beloved, a living icon. He's died recently. He
yeah,
was in one of the main papers, I think, The Age or The Australian, where they'd had films about him. I mean, he was just heralded as this great artist. And then he drew a cartoon with a group of tanks, but the turret was
that's right. I saw that. Yeah,
yeah, a
brilliant.
syringe, and there's a
Yeah,
guy standing in front of it,
yeah,
and they sacked him.
yeah,
They just tossed him aside.
yeah.
They,
Incredible.
they have a certain thing, and this comes
Yeah,
to all vaccines. It's like this woman approached me the other day. I did a rant about it, and she goes to me, "You an anti-vaxxer?" But she was really asking me, "Do you believe in our God?"
yeah,
That's what she was actually asking. Are you,
yeah.
or basically, are you a heretic? You
Yes,
know?
yeah,
Yeah, it's fascinating because you hear it in a tone and everything like that. It's
it's an
staggering.
ideology. Yeah, the lawyer Aaron Kheriaty, I think, um has written a book called, was that him, or, because I've got it, I've not read it yet, but it's called Vaccines Are Men.
Oh, wow.
So it is about that entire kind of idea of vaccines being a religion that people just cannot. Aaron Siri.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
incredible.
Vaccines are men, and yeah, it is, and that's why you can't, wake people up with the facts. They won't listen to it, because
No.
that's not what a religion is about. You've got to reach them on an
Or,
emotional level.
or, and this is just theorizing now because we don't know. I've been suggesting this to a lot of people, and these are just discussion points because despite all the interviews, I really don't know. But say you're on point A and you want to get to point B, which is on the horizon, and the government has set up a world where the only way you can get to point B in the shortest time
Yeah,
is to lie.
yeah,
If you tell the truth, you're
yeah,
never going to reach point, or it's going to be very, very incredibly difficult and time
yeah,
consuming, and they'll probably try to break you. But if you
yeah.
lie, boom.
You go straight
And
there.
yeah, it's almost like in China, if you want to get the best jobs, you have to join the Communist Party. And it's wondering if the jab was that.
Yeah,
The other theory we have over here is if you remember back whenever there's a tragedy, the government always refers to God. Let's keep the families of the victims in our prayers. You just hear that all the time. In
yeah.
COVID, you never heard that. And the
No.
churches were all closed. The priests were all missing. Every
Yeah,
morning there was a new mass on TV with the death count,
yeah,
and the vaccination centers were all open.
yeah.
Come inside, we'll keep you safe. Just roll up. And do you, could it be possible that people were converted and that this decision is spiritual, is so deep that facts can't reach it?
Yeah, I agree with that to a certain extent because I think for some people, I mean, I don't have a strong faith, and I do, no disrespect to people that have a faith, but part of having a deep faith must be by definition that fear of death, because if you have a faith, then you believe in an afterlife, right? Something, depending on what faith it is, but pretty much it's the whole ideology of having a faith is that the reason why we're on earth is to do the best we can in order to reach that paradise, however it's wrapped up.
Mm.
So the fear is the thing that maintains people's belief in the vaccines, for instance, because even we don't have kids, but we've got a Labrador puppy, and it's been incredible just trying to overcome the fear that something awful might happen to her if we don't get her jabbed, and here she is, thank God, 18 months old, and she's as healthy as can be. But
Oh, yeah. They
the
vaccinate their
propaganda,
pets like crazy.
oh God, it's
It's
insane. And
just
when you start,
insane. And then all these pedigree dogs die early
yeah,
because they've all had
exactly.
numerous
Yeah.
vaccines.
Yeah. And it's not until you sit down, it doesn't actually take that long, until you sit down and say, right, let's do some proper research. Let's look at the reasons why. First of all, let's look at the injections themselves, the reasons why supposedly you're supposed to get a dog, vaccinated every single year, and et cetera, et cetera. It's total nonsense.
It's interesting,
Fear
isn't it?
mongering. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Talking about faith for a sec, most of my life I've been agnostic and briefly atheist, but I couldn't stay there. But I was there was a big protest over here at the shrine, and people were shot at the shrine. They shot people, and earlier on in the day, I was shot by an armored vehicle, an armored car. Someone shot me from one of those. But literally an hour before that, I was at this protest. I'd been pepper sprayed at a previous protest where Matt Lawson had been shot, and I'd seen the violence. And now I was back, and I knew how violent the police could be, like shooting us.
Yeah.
And I was terrified. I was so terrified I couldn't stay. But I really felt that if I left, my child or my child's child would be fighting for the liberty against real bullets. So I knew I had to stay. So for the first time in my entire life, I seriously prayed.
Yeah.
And what I said was, look, you don't owe me anything.
Yeah.
I've spent most of my life pretending you don't exist, not getting there and just basically living apart.
Yeah.
But I can see that there's great evil happening now, and I
Yeah.
have to stay. And if you take my pain away, I'll fight for you. And
Yeah.
like a light switch had gone in, my fear just went.
Yeah.
That day I was beaten up, I was shot, and this whole period I've been doing this journey, there are so many extraordinary coincidences that you really go
Yeah.
to take a leap of faith. So at one point, I decided, I'm taking a leap of faith. If I get to
Yeah.
the end of my life and I'm wrong, oh, well, I'm just another
Doesn't
delusional
matter,
idiot.
does it? Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
deal. But
Yeah.
I'm actually going the other way. So
Yeah.
it was a personal choice, and that's, I think, what faith is. You realize you can't make this decision based on facts because no one
Yeah.
knows. No one's come
No,
back from the dead.
absolutely. It is as someone's just said, it is a spiritual war. There's no doubt that there's a darkness and an evil satanic nature to what's going on.
Yeah.
And the only way to fight it is through love. I mean, because people don't, as we said a minute ago, people don't want to have bad news. What
No.
about COVID or the jabs or the propaganda or the war or whatever it is. They don't want bad news, but they are, all of us need love in our lives, and so it makes sense to be in touch with those emotions and offer whatever we can, like you did with your free hugs, during
Yeah.
the
Yeah, yeah.
lockdowns. I mean, that must have been really effective, I'm guessing, because that's what people were
Oh,
crying out
do you
for.
know what? There was some extraordinary moments there. The best people to get them, we used to have pretty girls doing it, guys doing it. There were some people who were a bit smelly, and I used to think, well, maybe we should have a, you know.
Yeah.
But the ones that got the most were the grandmothers or
Yeah.
women over 60 and even in their 70s. They'd
Yeah.
go up with their arms open, a free hug sign on their huge boobs, and you'd see people standing there with the masks, and it's like they were in a conflict. Who do I
Yeah.
trust? The government, because these people are bad, but my communal grandmother wants a hug. And they would
Yeah.
hug these women, not like, oh, okay, I'll give you a hug. They were
Yeah.
hugging like they were
Yes.
holding on to save me. It was
Yes. Yeah.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. But this is what I'm saying. We've seen these extraordinary things, but nothing really stops. They
Yeah.
still keep going. And I want to
Yeah.
get to what you talked about with your talking about addiction to mobile phones.
Oh,
But
yeah.
there was another question there. What was another question? It's just because of, not that I'm expecting you to have the answers, but that's right. The other interesting thing that we've heard several times now, to go in context, I interviewed a priest in Perth secretly. He said early on he had 100 or more parishioners who in the confessional box told him that they were seriously vax injured, but they
Oh,
would
shoot.
not go. Oh, sorry, Lynn. There's that they would not go to a doctor or anyone or tell anyone because they didn't want to be seen as an anti-vaxxer. And
Yeah.
then we had another woman we met recently, and she severely vax injured. I think her husband is dying of the vax injury, and they are too scared to talk because they don't want to be seen as anti-vaxxers.
Yeah.
So they're prepared
Yeah.
to die
Yeah.
to
I mean,
keep
we
the
shouldn't
lie,
laugh,
to
but
protect the lie.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't
Cowards.
know, man.
Just cowards. Just, that I forget who it was now who said that shame is the most powerful social tool. If
Yeah.
you can make people feel shame, then you can basically do whatever you like to them.
So
Because
that's really interesting. So that's what they're scared of. Because there
yeah,
was another interview I saw, or it happened before me when I was doing one of my plays. There was a woman who'd been paid by the she was a psychologist, I think, paid by the New South Wales government to study domestic abuse situations to find out how many of the victims killed themselves after the
yeah,
relationship finished. And what she
yeah,
discovered was hardly any did. But the
yeah,
men killed themselves. The perpetrators killed themselves, and the main cause or the main trigger was shame.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
But she came out with that, and they didn't publish it. She published the book, but they didn't put out the report because it went against
Really?
went against the narrative. So she was just publishing the book. Yeah, something like that. I never heard it, and no one's ever heard of it. I thought, well, that's a remarkable discovery.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that did
Yeah.
happen at the end of World War II. There was a lot of suicides by the people that had, done those horrific things.
Oh, yeah, in Russia. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
go back though. Tell me about how you get people to break their mobile phone addictions.
Okay.
That's the job.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing's like any addiction, right? You've got to recognize that it is an addiction. And that not only that, the tools that the developers of the phones use are deliberately addictive. It's not an accident that the notifications are red, because red will get your attention and they'll make you excited or feel an emotion. And so having that recognition that it is an addiction is the first step. And then you've got to wean yourself off, so there's various strategies. There's books been written. If you want to really make a change, I would highly recommend that you just turn all of your notifications off. And that in itself is too much for people to cope with sometimes. But delete the apps that you know that you don't use, first of all, and then create what we call speed bumps. So what they do is the opposite in some ways to the one-click buy on Amazon, because if you go to Amazon and they know your credit card number, all you've got to do is literally one click and it's yours, baby. It's yours. Don't have to go through putting your address in and all of that stuff. They deliberately make it a very easy jump. That's part of the behavioral science. So what you can do to overcome that is build in these speed bumps. So for instance, first of all, you'll take the app off altogether, right? So that you know that you've got to go onto a laptop in order to order something or whatever. Or if you can't cope with that, then put the app inside another folder on a second screen. So make sure not everything is on the first screen on your phone. Have two screens, and then put the app that you want to wean yourself off on the second screen, maybe inside a folder. So you're just creating more clicks, because the more clicks you have, the speed bumps basically engage your brain to think, hang on, do I really want to buy this? Do I really want to spend this money? Or do I really want to go onto Twitter or, whatever it is? You're just slowing the pace down in order for your critical thinking skills to get activated.
Yeah, it's because it's extraordinary now. I remember before I made it as a playwright, I was a tram driver, and you'd be driving the night shift and you'd look in and you'd have a tram full of people and everyone would have their head down.
Yeah.
Every single one. It was almost like they were praying. Everyone. You just saw all these head downs. I used to laugh. I remember getting on first as a dinosaur could pass the side of the tram and no one would witness it.
Yes.
Because they're all so busy looking at their phones. And I'm terrible with my phone too. I mean, it's my business, I guess. It's this. But yeah, it's really interesting. Do you think it also, with the notifications, there's a thing of worth there? People are craving for worth. And if they get a notification, it means someone's either liked what they've posted or wants to talk to them or something.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily the actual, although that is like a positive reinforcement, the fact that they've got a like or whatever it is. But actually, the dopamine, like the actual thing that gets you addicted, is is there anything new? That's what leads you to pick up your phone. Is there anything new? Because that kind of emotion, that hit, is what you're looking for. And if there is something new, then, oh my God, there's something new. Let's see what it is. So turning the notifications off is a great way of just cutting off that initial kind of seeking of
It's like a
anything
baby
new.
crying. You stop the baby crying. Oh, the baby's crying. I better look at it. Go and check on it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
not everyone would agree with that, but yeah, similar sort of principle, I suppose. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
reinforce that. If it's bad, if it's negative behavior, basically stop reinforcing it. You know, it's a bit like, oh, I'm getting up late every night, or you know, I'm getting up in the middle of the night, or I'm staying up late. Oh, I'll just go and, you know, make myself a hot chocolate or have some ice cream or something. You know,
Yeah.
you're making yourself feel good about something that maybe you shouldn't be doing. So
Yeah.
yeah, just stopping that repetition, that routine. And it's muscle memory as well, you know, click click, you know, on your phone. It's very easy to fall into that trap. So
Oh, easy. Everyone's in it. You know,
yeah,
yeah. And we're gonna need it. Now, if we get digital ID, which I guess they're bringing out, well, they are bringing it out here. Um, we are going to have it always. Your phone, you're not going to be able to go anywhere without your phone, you know?
how do you think that'll work? Because I do know people who don't have phones, you know.
I know
I just wonder.
my
Yeah,
parents don't have an email, you know?
no.
People
So
say email, he goes, "He doesn't have an email." They're like, "Look at you like you're a dinosaur," you know?
how is that
Yeah,
gonna, how are they gonna force that on people then? They'll just
I
become
don't
a
know.
two-tier society.
Well, we've got another thing over here that they're going to start charging rent. They're going to start charging you tax on rooms that you don't use. And I thought, well, how are they going to know you've got unused rooms? Or are they going to come around and check?
Yeah,
You know,
it's crazy. Yeah.
you got to have a
It,
person living in every room. I mean, most people buy a room just to,
yeah,
that's my study room or that's
yeah.
my theater room. So this is, we're heading into a real dystopia.
Yeah,
And
totally. Yeah,
it's just deepening and deepening, and
yeah,
still, we're sitting here. I know because we're trying to figure out what's going to be our response to digital ID. And we've got some ideas we're going to talk about soon. Robin has come up with a brilliant idea, but part
mm,
of me is thinking, yeah, but will anything work with the
yeah,
horde?
yeah,
Or have they just given up already?
yeah,
That's the other
yeah,
thing too. I do wonder if you've take from a psychological point of view. If I had a man crying, a really strong tradie man crying next to my bus one night because even though he was injured, he couldn't get over the fact that he felt violated. He didn't want to take
yeah,
it, the government forced him, and he agreed that he felt medically raped. And I
yeah,
wonder if that's a form of being broken, and now something inside him, the shame or whatever, the anger he has at himself, can't
yes.
find the I've got a helicopter going over. Can't
Uh-oh.
find the strength, the moral
Yeah,
fortitude to stand up to whatever next is coming.
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
just
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
totally. That was actually one of the quotes, and I used it in one of my Substack posts about the teachers' submission to the COVID inquiry. Was, you know, that this particular teacher literally, you know, she'd been raped in the past, and this experience of having to be jabbed. Because remember, you know, the mandated teachers and nurses, they're not all unjabbed. Some of them did get jabbed, but they just
Yeah.
didn't get their second dose or their booster because the mandates were still in place, you know, for a fairly long time. So there's definitely that trauma of having your body violated, and it's understandable. And you know, these people are suffering from PTSD. I think there's a real deep rooted, unacknowledged problem in all of our societies where people have just been totally exploited and dismissed, and it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
they have no one's healed on both sides. The
yeah,
people like you yourself, if you decided to stand up against the government, I tell people now, people like you have not been on a journey, you've been on an odyssey. You've had
yeah,
to rediscover yourself. You've had to lose. You've had to grieve really because you've lost
yeah,
friends. You've watched
yeah,
your country go to shit.
yeah,
You've watched two countries go down,
yeah,
and you've been betrayed by your heroes. I
yeah,
was in the theater world. All
yeah,
these major directors who I wanted to work with, and I was actually working with Bruce Beresford.
yeah,
I was working with this major hero of mine, and suddenly they're all compliant, and you're going,
yeah,
"What? You know,
Yeah.
one of them, I
Yeah.
remember one of them said, I can't ever remember it, when they were going to, he was the trigger actually for me posting that my theatre company won't perform for segregated audiences. This was a major theatrical director, and he said, when they said they only the vaccinated come in, he said, "Thank God, I could think of
Yeah.
nothing worse than sitting next to a filthy anti-vaxxer."
Yeah. Yeah. I've experienced that as well. Yeah.
Amazing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Just
and he's still
unbelievable. I mean,
working because, the theater world is, if
yeah,
they
it
were
just
any
goes
more woke,
on. Yeah.
they'd have insomnia, you
It's
know?
insane. I
Yeah.
know some people are saying that, it stops when we say no and, digital ID isn't going to happen. I'm not going to comply. But, I think of the practicalities of that, Michael. And from my
Mm.
perspective, for instance, I've got people that friends and family that I send stuff to. This is just one example of many, right? Our local post office, about a year ago, they pulled their facility. So it was, first of all, there was a proper post office in town. Then the corner shop, the dairy, whatever you call them in Australia.
Yeah, the deli or the milk bar. Yeah.
The milk bar, that their facility of a post office was taken away. And then the customs form that you fill out when you go to the main post office, they changed the format deliberately to make it too complicated for a lot of people to do. And now recently they've said, oh no, you can't use a manual customs form anymore for anything other than a document. You've got to use a customs form to send anything overseas. And you know how strict New Zealand is about anything that you send.
Yeah.
So you've got to go online to do a customs form now, right?
Oh, yeah, I did fill that form in to send you the book.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. So now
it's a
so
book.
you can't do that. You can't do a handwritten one now in New Zealand. You've got to go online. So the next stage is, well, in order to access that form, guess what? You've got to be registered. You've got to have your digital ID to get onto because they've already got your credit card.
Yeah.
They've already got your credit card number. They know your address. They actually email me to say, oh, Dr. Edgington, your package that you sent from such and such to so-and-so, it was 10 grams underweight or overweight. So we're going to charge your credit card, whatever. So it's every single element of the way that we're living. I mean, does it get to a point where I say, like you sending me the book or me sending my mum, a birthday card or a present or whatever, does it get to the point where we say, do you know what? I don't comply. That means that my friends and family don't have any physical connection with me anymore, only online.
Yeah.
Is that the compromise? Just one compromise of many that we get to. It's pretty scary, really. The actual reality of it.
Digital ID coming in. It's to protect under 16-year-olds from the internet, even though they can still access porn. And we all have to get it. So every time we get on, we have to have facial recognition to get on the internet.
That's right. I've seen that.
December the 10th. So that's going to be the big thing for Australians. That's what we're fighting. I just think it's horrendous.
Yeah. Yeah. And the irony is, of course, that most of the predators online are adults. So they can do whatever they like and create a fake identity in order to access, the children another way. So it's like the immigration thing in the UK. Why would a digital ID that is now going to be mandatory, supposedly, to work in the UK, possibly be any use to supposedly illegal migrants who, by the way, chuck their passports over into the sea? Because we used to live in Kent, so we know exactly how it works coming across the channel, through various countries over the beach, and then just scarpering, and no trace. It's there's no logic, but again, it comes back to that cognitive dissonance. People, they can't put the logic together and start questioning it, because then it becomes uncomfortable, and they don't want to go down that route, because it means that they have to start questioning lots of other things about their own behaviors.
It's interesting with England, in the past, if you wanted to invade England, like the Normans or the Vikings, you had to come and get ships, land on the shore, and actively fight your way and conquer the country. Now they basically they handcuff all the people in the UK with political correctness, and the army just waltzes in. I
Yeah.
mean, you literally are being invaded.
Yeah.
I know I've got relatives from Wales and other counties that are saying that, and it's not anti-Muslim, but this is just a fact that they do the call to the prayers, the Muslim prayer
Yeah.
call 5 times a day, and that's legal, and
Yeah.
yet they're getting arrested for preaching the Bible, and they're not allowed to ring their church bells.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
extraordinary,
It
you
is.
know,
It's insane.
because
The
it's
whole
causing
world.
division. It's
Yeah.
basically setting England up
Yeah.
for almost a civil war,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
yeah. The other interesting thing too. This is. Would you agree that we are in historical times? This is real history. Like we grew
Yeah.
up in sort of the 80s, which was like just, do what you want, hang out, just, like she'll be right era history. But this is real
Yeah.
significant history. And the
Yeah.
quality of our decisions, or the weight of our decisions will affect the quality of our children and our grandchildren's liberty.
Yeah.
So we're
Absolutely.
historical characters within this historical times,
Yeah.
and yet so many people are deciding to be NPCs
Yeah.
rather than actually going, why don't you become why don't you take up the mantle of fighting for something that's greater than you, and having some, I don't know, gravitas to your life, just
Yeah.
having, I fought like yourself. I mean, it's an honor to talk to you, because anyone who's withstood this agenda and is still trying to baffle their way through to where to go, I've got huge admiration for. You don't have to prove uh, your courage to anyone. I know when you first started, you were sort of saying, oh, at first I wasn't really awake. Who cares? Who cares? You withstood the greatest propaganda attack in the history of the world. You
Yeah.
withstood it, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, you did as well, Michael. Well done. And we're very appreciative to people like you who we hung on to, especially in those early days. I remember how important platforms like yours were to people like me who thought they were going insane, and there was an element of hope, especially with the protests and the Canadian truckers coverage and all of that. It was, phenomenal. I think going back to your point about the point of history, a lot of people, they dismiss history as something disconnected from the current lives. They look back, they look at the history books, and it's not until you read like Victor Klemperer's diaries, if anyone's interested in reading up about that interwar period. Victor Klemperer was a professor at the University of Dresden, and he wrote a diary virtually every day during that era and hid it. It wasn't published until after the war. And he describes exactly what we're living through now. Him and his wife were sat at a dinner table, and afterwards he would reflect on it and say, oh, well, so-and-so was brainwashed, and so-and-so sort of was nearly with us. And he actually, that schism in society where some people would believe the propaganda because he was Jewish, some people believed that, he was, to be treated with contempt, or he was, carrying a disease or whatever. And they were doing this for the good of the Jews. They were building these work camps because otherwise they wouldn't have work, and they needed to be dealt with, the Jewish problem, as they called it. It's fascinating reading about that era. And it's something, of course, that has been deliberately omitted from the school's curriculum. Nobody knew about that run up. They all said, oh, well, it was the Germans' fault. They brought it on themselves, and they were weak people, and they believed the Hitler propaganda, and, Hitler was an evil man and blah, blah. No, it ain't as simple as that.
No, nothing's as simple as that.
No.
History is messy. Our lives are messy. Everything's
Yeah.
messy.
Yeah.
There's very few things. Let's talk about something we might disagree on, and because it's really great to have disagreements and still be friends.
Yeah.
Tell
totally.
us your thoughts on Charlie Kirk.
Ah, oh
Not
God.
just even the killing, but actually Charlie Kirk himself as a person, because some of your comments I found really interesting.
Yeah, okay. So, like a lot of people in this hemisphere, I'd never even heard of Charlie Kirk until relatively, well, until the incident, right?
All right.
I know that some people had heard of him, and then when fellow people that are on our page, and when I queried them about where they found his name from, or how they got on to listening to him, it was on their social media. They're still on social media, on YouTube or on Facebook or whatever, and they saw it come up on their news feed. Now, there's a reason why these things happen, right? I'm not on social media, so I didn't see it promoted, and the promotion started about a year ago. So they've deliberately built up his audiences. So the first thing I do as a researcher is go to look at the IRS, the Inland Revenue Service in the USA, to look at his entities, Turning Point, and to see whether they are genuine charities or not, whether there's companies associated with those directors, where the funding is coming from, what all that kind of stuff.
That's
and
really
it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious right from the very get-go that was not what Charlie Kirk presented himself as. He started that so-called charity when he was 18. That's impossible, to have multi-million dollars thrown at it from political lobby groups, etc. It's not believable. And so once you start to pull at the threads,
did he get the money at 18? Did the money come
he started
later?
that entity. Yeah, he started that entity when he was 18, apparently.
But is that when the big money came, or did it start slow and then at some point grew? Because I know I was listening to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan said for years, he was doing podcasts for years, and for years he was getting nothing, hardly anybody. He just did it for fun. And then something happened, and suddenly, very, very slowly, he grew. He said it wasn't overnight. It was a really slow thing. And then suddenly he's the most popular one in the country.
Well, maybe somebody took advantage of him early on. I don't know. I don't know the details. All I know is
because Greta Thunberg is similar in that way.
Yeah,
I mean,
possibly.
remember, here's this photograph of a girl sitting in front of a building with a sign, and and a week later, she's talking to the United Nations.
Yeah.
Now that you can only do that if you have very, very powerful people behind you. But I do wonder, because we're in a propaganda war, whether the big, powerful movers and shakers are always looking for something they can sell. And Charlie was something easy to sell.
Yes.
I didn't agree with everything he said.
Yeah.
I don't. He has the thing that fathers, mothers at home with the kids. It's like an ideal. But I came from that era, and there was a lot of unhappy people, a lot of unhappy women in marriages. It was never everyone happy at all. It was, there was troubles then.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, without going into too much detail, there's a lot about the whole Charlie Kirk story that doesn't make sense. So, and the fact that it's on every platform, all the headlines, and still today you can download, you can watch the video of him being shot. I mean, if that, think about what they did with the Christchurch incident, instantly it was banned.
In Australia.
Yeah.
We can't see it in Australia. But what I do love about him, though, is I know you were saying about it. I've been watching. I've always watched him. I didn't follow him, but because he always came up on my feed. I enjoy watching the debates. I realize they put up the most extraordinary ones because that's going to get the viewers. Apparently, when he did one, the first few people who'd come up would all be praising him. But he'd eventually say, no, come on, I want someone who'll disagree with me and bring them to the front of the line. But I do think he was right where he said discourse is the way out of this. So learning the techniques of having, that's why this woman was calling me an anti-vaxxer the other day. I just stayed silent because I want to have an answer in my head which not that's going to change your mind, but at least might make a pause for a second, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so learning tech, even though I'm an old guy, it's learning uh, these debating techniques. But you said that these are old debating tricks. You said in the phone this morning,
Yes.
something like
Yeah.
that.
If anybody wants to know more details about the debating techniques, reachingpeople.net is a good resource. That's David Charalambos, which you may have even spoken to him, Michael.
No,
Have you?
I might do.
You have.
Reaching people.
Reachingpeople.net.
Great.
They've got a YouTube channel as well. So they're basically giving you hints about how to have those difficult conversations using the behavioral science. And Charlie, looking at what he did, he knew what the behavioral science was, but certainly the more recent ones, he was quite patronizing with it. You know, he was sort of using a power play and manipulating
I
the
didn't pick that up.
discussion.
Yeah, I'd have to disagree there. I actually thought because if I've watched lots of them, he'd quieten the audience. I thought he offered quite a bit of respect to the people who were being. That's what I'd have a trouble with. I think if I was there and people were screaming, calling me racist and all this, I'm not sure that I could stay calm. But that's what I admired about him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And trying to find common ground because my country now has such a division that I fear it might never be breached.
Yeah.
We always
I
might
agree.
be the free
Yeah.
thinkers and the mob, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I
what,
agree.
where'd that-
New Zealand is probably the same.
that's what this thing here, be
Yeah.
free. That's the blue bee. So the blue bee doesn't live in a hive, doesn't follow a queen, but it pollinates flowers. So it wants to be an active part of society, but it
Yeah.
wants to think for itself. So we're
Yeah.
trying in Australia, we're trying to get it like a Christian fish symbol so we can identify each other.
Yes,
And
that's a good idea.
yeah, but it's a gentle symbol. And the other ones are the bees,
Yeah.
necessary to society, but they conform, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's extraordinary time. It's an
It
extraordinary
is.
time to
It
be
is an
alive.
extraordinary time. Yeah. Are
You
you going to
know?
write a play about it, Michael?
I've got one already. I've got one called it's too it's oh well no theatre will put it on. It's called An Interview in the Apprentice God. It's it's just an interview with one of the people, you know, fiction wise, who's
Yeah.
perpetrating all this. Because I'm of a belief that if you see the head of Pfizer, these people think that they're really good people. They don't think they're evil people.
No,
They think they're good
absolutely.
people.
Yeah.
So I believe they've got a vision that they're working towards. And in order to reach it, maybe it's a nirvana where there's the animals are back, the world's healthier, and all they have to do to reach this nirvana is kill a lot of us off, which they are doing.
Yeah.
You know, with the fertility things, the turbo cancers, the death rates are up. So it was hearing from his perspective, and what he was saying was, what his theory was, that we've never had a God. There's never been a God. Humans have constantly created and recreated gods to sort of try to light up the darkness and then to use it as polyfiller in the cracks in their knowledge. But now that the science has caught up, now they believe they're becoming gods. So they're becoming our gods. That's why an interview with an apprentice God. And so they're going to recreate the world now. And that's sort of what the play, and there's a big twist at the end, but I'm not going to find an actor in Australia brave enough to do it. Just, you know,
No, definitely not.
they're all lining up to do the Wiggles. And so, you know, there is the artists in Australia. That was the greatest disappointment. This is a period where we desperately need incredibly brave artists. You had a great comedian over there, a young Maori guy. I used to watch him religiously. I interviewed him once. And he was so funny. I thought he was going to become like world famous. He was so funny. But in actual fact, he just got banned and he vanishes.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? I don't know.
Do you remember his name? Liz Gunn got me onto him. And you'd have to be on social media. He was on Instagram, but oh my God, he was funny. He used to rip Jacinta a second
Not
one, but
said.
he was
Was it? Was
Seth.
it
Yeah,
said? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I don't know. So we don't see him anymore. So
Yeah. Well,
we
I
don't.
don't know what's happened to him. Yeah, if someone can track him down, that would be helpful.
But the last time I talked to him, he was worn out, and
Yeah,
he's just because that's it, Sesh, because he
yeah,
thought he was going to change the world, and I thought he was too, because I thought he
yeah,
was like a genius comedian,
yeah.
but nothing. And this is the interesting thing. The comedy doesn't work. The books won't work. The truth doesn't work. So what is it? Is it just that they feel the government's got all the jobs and the guns and the resources, so they're staying with the mothership, and no
Mm,
matter what, and they're just
yeah,
going to try ride it out? Because in Australia, the only freedom a lot of Australians have retained is the freedom to endure. And I truly wonder what it is that will make them suddenly stop and go,
mm,
okay, the direction we're heading, there's nothing conducive for our human souls. We're
yeah,
not, because I don't know what it's like in New Zealand, but we have cameras everywhere, everywhere. The
mm,
amount of surveillance is insane,
mm,
and now they're
yeah,
bringing in, you got the 5G everywhere. Now they're bringing in this digital ID. So
yeah,
we're just big open air prison. Yeah.
yeah. The difference is in New Zealand, we have got cameras in a lot of the towns, but of course the databases aren't set up like they are in the UK, for instance, where we've got ANPR, automatic number plate recognition. So
Yeah.
because like one of the major differences, of course, in Australia, you've got mandatory vehicle insurance.
Yeah.
We don't. So
Oh,
people can be driving. People might not even have licenses, right? They
okay.
don't have to have insurance. So even if a number plate surveillance camera, recognized a number plate, I think the processes behind actually capturing somebody who was driving at that point or whatever, I don't think New Zealand is always behind the times, right, in terms of its procedures or
Which is probably why you
systems
moved
or
there.
whatever. Yeah, maybe, yeah. So I'm not saying that it's not here and that it's not a danger and a real and present danger, but we're still a way off yet from being in the situation that the UK is in, for instance, where it literally is ready to rock and roll.
Oh, well, we're the
There's
same. We've got December the
yeah,
10th.
yeah,
But they've, instead of they're selling to it as to protect our kids, because suddenly the government
yeah.
really cares about our kids. Suddenly,
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's like, you don't want to be killing granny, do you? It's the same kind of
No,
thing. It's for the
no,
greater good, for the
the
greater
greater
good.
good. What are you working on at the moment?
At the moment, I'm working on, amongst other things, a presentation for NZ doctors, SOS, because we're doing a collection of presentations to the COVID commissioners, the COVID inquiry commissioners, that they didn't see. So basically, questions that they should have asked, people that they should have interviewed, that sort of thing. So I'm doing probably a 30-minute presentation that I'll publish on the propaganda elements of what we've been through. So that will go on my Substack, Michael. So I'd appreciate it if people
Yeah,
can share it
send us the
widely.
link. We'll share it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not up there yet, but I'll definitely publish it when it's recorded. It'll just be me talking to some slides for 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so.
Well
Yeah,
done. Well done for
we
keeping up
just
the
keep
fire.
going. Yeah, we just keep
Yeah,
going.
we have
Just
to. What else can we do?
yeah, exactly. Chip,
We
chip
have a
away.
funny saying over here now. I ask people, "Are you on the right path?" And they go, "Yes." I go, "Where are
Yeah.
you going?" They go, "I don't know."
Love it. Yeah, yeah, that's
And that's
great.
where we're at. We
Yeah,
just don't know. We just know that we can't stay here and we
yeah,
can't go where they want to take us.
yeah,
So yeah, it's an extraordinary time. And then I think we're in the era now where those who thought Trump was going to save the world are realizing that probably ain't going to
yeah,
happen.
that's right.
And
Yeah,
and so it's back to us.
yeah,
And can our communities realize they actually have the power. If they would
Yeah.
only take up the responsibility of their power, they
Yeah.
could change the world.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
George Orwell wrote in 1984. You know, if only the common people recognised that they had the power, then they'd easily overturn the government. But they didn't. They just had that learned helplessness. They didn't think that they could make the difference. But
Yeah.
we know we can.
Yeah, learned helplessness. God, that's
Yeah.
it's such a tragedy. Yeah.
It is a tragedy. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for
But
your
we,
chat. Is there anything else
thank
you wanted
you.
to say before we go?
No, only that there's probably some things that links that I can send you that you can share at some point, like the
Oh, there's
reaching
links in the show
people.net.
notes too. If you want
Yeah.
to follow her work and see what she's doing, there's links in the show notes.
Yeah, please do.
And,
I don't charge anybody a subscription. I try to write something new every week on a Monday.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we can link up that way. And as I say, the presentation to the NZDSOS will be up there in the next week or so. And yeah, just keep fighting, keep chipping away at the cognitive dissonance, and try to live as independently as we all can.
Well, the reason I called this Goodbye Road was from a poem of mine, which is saying that we're the orphans of Goodbye Road. Goodbye Road is they threw us out of society. We don't know where it's going. And initially we were alone on the road, but then we found each other. So we're like the orphans, and we built our own new communities on Goodbye Road. So in leaving, what I'll say is I guess I'll meet you somewhere down Goodbye Road in the near future.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing? You know, going back to that question about the pros and cons of speaking out, we would never have even known each other. You know, there's so many new connections and things that we've learned, and new networks and friends. And, you know, I wouldn't, if we had the choice, I wouldn't do anything different. You know,
Same.
This has been a great experience. And yeah.
I might learn how to duck. I think I'll probably do that in the future. I might take a lesson on how to duck. Yeah. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Michael.
No problem. Thanks so much. I wish you the best. God bless. See ya.
Yeah. Bye.
This is for Jan. This is something not noisy. I was going to play the noisy one, but this is from my musical magpie.
Things change, things do up ahead. The story you're writing isn't written yet. This evening is only a page in the morning. Your writer will begin again. The ink you breathe is never dry, and you won't predict your course, no matter